I wanted to move on now to talk about Callum Hudson-Odoi, and I think this is very much linked into Mason Mount. I think let's start on the social media, because you and I both heavily on social media, and we've probably seen this at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Callum not getting a lot of minutes, but then turning out to getting quite a few minutes before the international break. I think this is tied in, of course, to Bayern Munich coming in for him. But also just the toxicity and the division I see spewing up again between fans of, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Mason Mount, and sort of the division over stuff. I've got a lot of stick for backing Mason Mount and all of that. It's very weird to me how some fans seem to like one player but then dislike another. I just don't understand why fans can't support both players, even if you prefer one player to start over another. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you can shed any light on the situation, because it has been quite toxic at some periods over recent weeks.
Yeah, I think I did spoke about this maybe a month ago, and I said Hudson-Odoi and Mason Mount are two players in this squad who are, first of all, quite young, so they haven't built up any ridiculous amount of bad performances to build up this kind of toxicity in the first place. They're still very fresh in the Chelsea squad, and I feel like what happens with those two players is an underlying dislike for either the player or what surrounds the player on both sides. So from Hudson-Odoi, you're taking the fact that, maybe, fans feel that he's been overhyped and he's not as good as some other fans have made him out to be, or just some of his antics off the field that have obviously, got him into trouble at times, lockdown and other areas as well, with the training with Lampard and maybe, not training as hard as other players and not showing the dedication that's needed. And obviously the transfer request always comes back to haunt him regardless with the Bayern Munich interest. And I keep saying that's not down to Cho as an individual, that's down to his camp. And the way that they chose to go about the situation as well. And obviously they're being smart and tactical with it. They've got a very valuable, yes, it's their family, but very valuable asset. And they're trying to obviously play the situation to their favour. But obviously Hudson-Odoi is the poster, and he is the one that is going to take the heat if things look poorly in the media. So that's his situation, and fans will continue to use that stuff against him, and I find it interesting because whenever there's a negative headline on Hudson-Odoi, I take it very recently, he obviously played that charity match in the media, loved to jump on him as well. Now I'm starting to see in the newspapers, the Daily Mail, the Sun, they like to twist headlines and play it against them, because they know a negative headline with Hudson-Odoi gets clicks. Fan base run onto it. Those who are not too sold on the player, they just get to use that as ammunition to further prolong their thoughts, their initial thoughts on him, whether the information they're getting is correct or not. And it's just a way to fuel the hatred or the disdain for the player. And the same goes for Mason Mount. When those fake quotes came out from Falk about him, not wanting competition with Kai Havertz and whatnot, of course, everybody who knows Mason Mount knows that's fake. That was easily cleared up within probably about half an hour with the dad coming out. Some people that have connections to Mason Mount or privately speaking to him, obviously it's rubbish. It's not something that Mason can come out and say. It's not something the club can come out and address, because it's probably not worth their time. But you had numerous people in the TL coming out and saying, listen, this is a load of rubbish. Well-informed people. But again, those who have a disdain, a deep underlying hatred or disdain for the player, have used that to their advantage. And it's funny because people, when it comes to news, people read what they want to read, not what they actually read. They like to, people love news that suits what they want or what they thought initially, whether that be transfer news. That's why ITKs do so well, that actually don't know anything, because if you're giving out positive news on the club every 5 minutes, then that's what people wanted to hear and they come for more. And it's same with players. If you're giving out information that that aligns up with your preconceived thoughts of Hudson-Odoi not being a hard trainer, and then it comes out and saying that he's not committed, then great, that's fantastic. Let me retweet that. Let me start tweeting. Same goes for Mason Mount. So that's really what it is. Two players that divide the fan base, for me, is kind of silly. Outside ability, I don't really understand what there's much to talk about. You can debate on their ability. Yeah, so I prefer to compare ability when it comes to these players, because for me that's all there is to talk about, and not to compare them with each other, but just to compare them with either what's going on in the starting 11, where they best suit, footballing reasons, whether they should be rested, should be taken out, should be starting in their natural positions, whatnot. But people prefer to make it personal and obviously take it too far. We have someone DMing Mason Mount's dad. We have people, it's just so, yeah. So I know why it happens, but like I said, obviously I don't agree with it. It's a load of rubbish in my opinion, but I know why it happens. There's a lot of, it's a lot to do with people feeling that they're overrated or they're underrated or they're not getting the fair treatment that they should be, because obviously Mount plays a lot of games under Lampard, and Hudson-Odoi is obviously not getting the game time that people feel that he should be. There's so many layers to those two players. It's unheard of, to be honest. It's crazy.
I think it's strange, and I'm sure you get into this sort of area as well, like with Twitter especially, where most of this stuff takes place. But I'll see it in the comments of my videos where this line between criticism and abuse, which I think there is a clear line, but I think there's some people who sort of go in equal directions with it and really strong directions with it, where if you're critical at all of Lampard or any of the players, you're accused of being a fake fan, which I think is wrong, and I think is just detrimental to sort of fan harmony on social media. I think a lot of the time, if you're being constructive about criticizing, which we all are able to do, then that's fine. So I think there's that, but there's also the other side where it just seems that every game you see this tirade of abuse, and it's how seriously should we take it? I mean, you don't want to be demeaning to people and say you're not a real fan, but at the same time, it's that conflict where you go, sometimes because there's so much of it, you go, is this noise I should be taking seriously and addressing myself? I don't know if you get that sort of conflict as well, because there is so much of that on social media anyway for every fan base to deal with.
Yeah. I try not to address any of this because I try not to address it unless it's extremely serious. And the reason why is because I feel like I have the ability sometimes to change the topic of conversation on there. So if I was to make a video, I feel like I can take at least a portion of people and redirect them somewhere else. And if I feel like the situation is not serious, but it's something stupid where, look, him DMing the dad is stupid, but he's going to get blocked, and I know the dad doesn't care. His mentality is not going to be thrown from it. And I prefer not to always give it so much light, because the more light I give it is the more it keeps sparking the debate between the two players, or it continues to keep, I know for a fact that I personally, it's not going to get solved on my side. I'm not going to be able to stop people from hating on Mason Mount or hating on Hudson-Odoi or causing this friction. It's not possible, because people they just don't work like that. If they've got that in their head and they've got that preconceived thought, they're going to continue to run with it. So what I try to do is only address the very serious stuff that needs some sort of message and needs something that's for instance, the Tammy racial abuse last year after the Super Cup. That is just like, there's just no tolerance on that whatsoever. And obviously, if there's fake quotes going out on Mason Mount from Falk, I'll address that as well, or I gave it a retweet from someone who did address it, because again, that's just false. I don't like false information. If you're going to speak about players in general, I don't like fake news. So Hudson-Odoi, again, with his allegation, obviously proved not guilty. That was very important for me to get that out there, to clear his name, to clear these players' names when they're dragged into frenzies that really are just fabricated. Very important for me to get that out there and make sure that everybody knows the truth. But in terms of little squabbles on social media, I try not to get involved, because it's never going to end, in my opinion. And when it does end, it will end in its natural course. Unfortunately, it's not something that I can control. And I prefer to just my account. I prefer to just lead by example in a say where I put out what I want to see. So I put out a lot of opinions. I try to put out a lot of propaganda if I want to, try and phrase things in a creative, funny way, do videos. I put out what I would like to see on the TLR. So I don't put out, fuck Hudson-Odoi or Mason Mount is shit and just as a tweet. I don't put that out. I try to provide, if I'm not happy with their performance, I provide context or something like that. I try to put out what I would want to see. So I don't really want to see these two players, the toxicity. I don't want to see it, so I'd rather not put it out, because it's just going to continue to amplify instead of detox the situation for me.
I think that's the perfect way to put it. I mean, I think I'm the same on that sense, and I think that both of these players should be positive, they should be held up as positive individuals and sort of players to celebrate, I think, at the club, because, as we speak about Hudson-Odoi, I think, that situation where he could have gone to Bayern Munich, and luckily Lampard coming in and giving an opportunity to youngsters probably swayed his thinking that I'm actually going to stay now. I think that really helped him. So I think both of these players should be supported, criticize when it's fair and right to do so, but don't go over the line, and just, be respectful and support the players, because we want them to do well.